stuck in traffic, but that's okay. That is not the right piece of paper. Right, so first up we have approval of the agenda for the day. There isn't a whole lot on here, we just have an information item and no business items. Is there anything else that we need to adjust on our agenda? All right, hearing none, we can have that approved by consensus. Then we'll move on to approval of our March 2nd meeting minutes. We'll take a motion for those from anyone present from at
So
that
moved.
meeting. Okay, we have a motion from Bob. Is there a second?
I second.
Second from Monica. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes for March 2nd as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries and those minutes are approved. That brings us then to the public invitation portion of our meeting. This is for anyone who would want to address us on items not on our agenda to do so. Did we have anyone express interest in doing that today?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. For future reference, anyone who wants to do that at a future meeting, you can send an email to the address on the agenda to let them know to put you on schedule. That then brings us to our information item. We are talking about the 2050 Regional Development Guide and Regional Parks Plan Policy Plan Update for the Regional Parks and Trails System. And while we have various staff presenting, let us know who you are for the record and take it away.
Thanks, Chair, Council Member, and Commissioners. I'm Emmett Mullen, the Parks Manager, and I am with
Colin Kelly, Planning Analyst in the Parks Unit.
And Tracy Kinney, Senior Planner in the Parks Unit as well.
We have a short presentation today to sort of set up the information item, but we want the information item, which is really on digging into our regional park system vision, mission, and values. We want it to be fun and interactive. We want to invite our guest today, Jonathan, into the process. And, you know, this is something that's going to be iterative, and we want to just get your free-flowing ideas, no wrong answers. So with that, I will just jump into our presentation. So the Regional Development Guide is the 10-year planning effort that frames this, the Council's works, the Council's priority over the next 10 years. Colin, Tracy, and I will go over some introductory slides today, and we'll let you know where we are with this process. So this is a 10-year process, the decennial Regional Development Guide. And the Regional Parks and Trails System is one of the Council's 4 systems, along with transportation, water resources, housing. That is a vital part of that umbrella, that Regional Development Guide. And we want to spend the majority of time today in discussion, as I said, about the vision, mission, and values. Last month, I think it was, we did share out what's known as the Council endorsed kind of working draft of the Regional Development Guides, vision, values, and what else? That's about it. Okay, this is, and so our vision and values and mission needs to nest within that. It needs, so we're going to go over what it was in just a second. Great, hi Kenna, welcome. So here we go. Here's our project timeline, and this is organized into what I think of as 4 basic project management phases of initiation, planning, execution, and close. Right now, can I set up your place right there? I hope that's okay. Right now, we're sort of moving toward the end of the initiation phase and really getting into the beginning of the planning phase. So So we've organized within this context a number of council and agency work groups, and we want to use you throughout this process, the commission, as our sounding board, so for making this work. As you can see, this process is going to take us to the end of next year, so it's a really big effort, as Councilmember Vento knows, because she's been involved in it for a while. As I said, our proposed approach for moving work forward is going to be initiating work with these work groups, which are organized around 7 topics, from community engagement and regional parks and trail system vision and values, all the way down to the regional trails coordination with our regional bicycle transportation network. So we've initiated these first 2 work groups. Things are moving, and we will be keeping you regularly abreast of that, of our progress. So now here I am at the Regional Development Guide, and I'm just going to get everything out on the table. So the left-hand column here is just actually definitions of what we mean when we say values, vision, and goals. Values are our core beliefs or principles that guide the work of the council, our expectation of partnerships, and our policy and program development. The vision is what we want to achieve, where we're headed for the region through our policies, practices, programs, and partnerships. And then our goals, which we're not going to be talking about today, just broadly define or describe our desired end state. So to begin with, I want to go on the right-hand column and just walk through what the council members have identified as our 4 core values. Equity, leadership, accountability, and stewardship. So those are our big ideas, big core values, and like I can certainly see a pretty clear connection to our regional parks and trails work, so I'm excited about that. Next, I want to just, again, and I know you've heard this before, so I want to be brief, but here's what I think of as the council endorsed vision for the Regional Development Guide work. So again, the Regional Development Guide is that big umbrella. And there's 4 elements. Our region is equitable, inclusive, and welcoming. Our communities are healthy, safe, and vibrant. We lead on addressing climate change, and we protect and restore natural systems. So those are the 4 elements that we work within. Again, this vision helps frame the regional park system vision, mission, and values. So please keep this in mind as we move through these next few slides. Before I turn it over to Colin, does anyone have any questions about any of this or comments? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Emmett. So yeah, over the next 4 slides, I'll go through what you may recall from last fall, both the commission's and implementing agencies' responses to a few questions that we had for you around regional park system values and vision. Because we shared some of these responses with you last fall, I won't go into all of the details at this time. I'll keep it pretty high level. But you might have noticed around the room on the wall, we've got some posters of these materials as well. Emmett just shared the Regional Development Guide, Values and Vision. That's here. We've got some of the values posted over here, vision statements posted over here. Those will come into play in just a few minutes. But for now, I'll just provide a brief highlight to what you see before you. This is meant to be a reminder of the ideas that you and agencies shared last fall to reorient you to the discussion and as a foundation for continuing it. So when it came to values, 2 were mentioned more often than the rest, and those were safety and inclusion. Those are kind of highlighted on the middle row on the outside there. Some of the other values referenced included respecting old ideas while incorporating new ones, protecting nature, welcoming, well-maintained, and sustainable management. Moving over to the implementing agency side of the conversation, they responded to a similar question: what values do you feel are important to the future of our regional parks and trails system? The most commonly mentioned value to this question was equity. The other most frequently mentioned values were access, health, respect, diversity, inclusiveness, and welcoming. Those are the words that are kind of outlined in the thicker outlines there and the colorful outlines there. Some of the other values referenced included clean water, healthy native plant communities, stewardship, flexibility, sustainable funding, providing quality and value, and partnerships. Transitioning to a vision for the regional parks and trail system. You may recall we asked you, if you were here, to provide your early thinking around a 2-sentence vision. And I must say, you all came up with some really good ideas. In the interest of time, I'll just share a few, maybe 3, and let you kind of read through the remainder here. Again, these are posted up along the walls here and in your packet, so feel free to take a look. But I'll give voice to 3 here, and we'll start with serving all residents and visitors with a wide array of active and passive experiences to build lifelong memories. A sustainable system of integrated facilities that link open spaces of all scales and unite the regional environment and people with accessible and inclusive spaces. A critical refuge for people that enhances our regional sense of place and our connection to those before and after us. And our parks and trails are designed for family and individual enjoyment. They encompass a wide variety of geography, natural resources, and outdoor experiences. Implementing agencies answered the same question and similarly came up with some really good responses. Again, I'll give voice to 3, but please feel free to read and consider all of them. Regional parks and trails impact the quality of life for every metro area resident. Parks and trails are equitable spaces for community. The regional park system provides that near-to-home recreation experience that works to provide ways to connect with nature, escape the built environment, provide solitude for contemplative thinking, energizes and refreshes the soul or being that relieves stress and anxiety, provides physical exercise and challenges, and facilitates social well-being. And your home away from home, a place to escape and reconnect close to home and full of fresh air, clean water, and beautiful landscapes. I should also note that one of our implementing agency partners has shared a compilation of implementing agency vision, mission, and value statements that we'll have available for your perusal in the upcoming activities at the various stations in the room. So there's lots to consider. But for now, pass it over to Tracy.
Thanks, Colin. So I will now present the draft vision, mission, and value statements, which have been developed with your input as well as the implementing agency's input. The statements are very draft in nature and offer just a variety of options for you to choose from. Feel free to consider parts of the statements or the full statement itself, and also consider adding something if something is missing. So let's start with the vision statements. We have 2 slides for this vision statements, so hang in there. So we have the first statement is a 4-pronged statement. It's belong, connect, empower, and protect. Belong, regional parks and trails provide safe, inviting, and welcoming spaces for everyone. Connect, regional parks and trails connect community and inspire health and healing. And empower curiosity to explore nature and wildlife in regional parks and trails. And protect and care for natural areas in the regional parks and trail system. The next one is regional parks and trails connect community, inspire health and healing, and protect nature. And we have a few on this slide. Empowering all to discover, protect, and connect with nature in regional parks and trails. Providing quality nature-based experiences for future generations. Providing quality nature-based experiences and places for today and future generations where people and nature connect. Improving lives in nature for future generations. Creating a nature-based system that provides recreation and habitat. A place where people and nature connect. Before you here is the mission statements. The regional parks and trail system, we provide welcoming, inclusive, safe, and fun nature-based experiences. We connect and empower community while protecting nature. We inspire, empathize, and remain curious. And finally, the value statements. Partnership. Leading with the Regional Parks and Trail System agency partnership through curiosity, respect, and integrity. Equity. Creating an inclusive, welcoming, and safe, barrier-free nature experiences. And stewardship. Inspiring future generations to preserve, restore, and protect the environment. And well-being. Fostering the outdoors for community health. Fostering the outdoors for community health. So now it's your turn to weigh in. Council staff has organized 3 stations covering either the vision, mission, or values. The draft statements that I just presented are the basis for the conversation. Each station includes input to date, shown on the walls, as Colin had mentioned, a set of questions, and a definition of the topic area, as well as context information from Three Rivers Park District on each implementing agency's mission, vision, and values. So MCOS commissioners will lead the discussion, and at the table conversations, each table is going to have a council staff person at them. But essentially, the focus of the conversation is hearing from your input. We welcome agency and council staff who are here to participate in the conversation at the tables. And today's question is going to focus on those draft statements of each topic area, and they include what resonates, what do you like, what's missing, and what are your new ideas. So we're going to spend 10 minutes at each station, and then we're going to rotate to the next station. So this will take about 30 minutes. And then after the group discussion, each station will report out on the highlights, and then we'll follow up with some questions and discussion as group. And so before we break into groups, does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay, so we're going to count to 3. So we're going to go around the room and count to 3 so we can
Count off.
count off to 3. Thank you.
Flashback to grade school.
Yeah.
Anthony, you're number 1.
1. I'm gonna speed on number 2.
3, 1, 2.
3, 1.
2.
2.
Lisa, you're 3.
Wait.
She's at table. Yeah. Okay, perfect. We have 3 people at each group. That's a good number. Let's have fun with this. Don't sweat it. Like this is, you know, the idea is generating. So why don't we send the 1s over to the, what is that? The values statement. The 2s go over to the vision, and I'll take the 3s over here at the mission. So, okay, this has got to be a lot of fun too. So Tony, have fun.
Are there prizes? I don't see any prizes.
Are you the 3? I brought this up.
Staff person.
What you're doing is you're helping me. So you can stand up for a second. If you need to sit down, you can. And you don't get, oh, good. Kenny, you know Lisa?
It's a great question.
Yes, usually in the audience.
Yes, good to formally
Here.
Yeah.
So
Sue and Lisa, thank you, you guys are the participants.
what's happening
You're
here?
doing whatever you want, but I said, like, you might want to stand for a second to read what we've got, because like, this is
Like,
one,
we
I think,
we've got
So the goal
reads the
here is
most
to
verb, like,
try
we honestly just pulled some stuff out of the
that
policy.
stuff
Vision,
down
vision.
into
There is no
We've got a
very
definition
strong
that we're using
strategic
that
fronts
aligns
from
with the
one
regional
attempt at
development
staff
guide,
is needed to
part of the
invest.
policy plan,
definition of vision, which
so we
Emmett
just
shared
said,
earlier, but it's
how
on
about
this
these
sheet
three for
as well, if you
starting
need to
places?
refer to it. The vision is what
Can we
we,
have a
and
definition?
No.
when we say we, we're
Well-
talking
I'll
about
use a
the
phrase for you.
implementing
Mission
agency.
To give you
and
a
council,
inspire.
So let me just say a mission,
So,
like it's defined
it's the
here.
The
partnership,
definition of
and
values.
what we
It's
want to
the
achieve.
reason for being,
Regional
it's
park
why we
trails is
exist,
to our
So-
policies,
how,
practices,
you know,
programs,
for being
and
how it
partnerships.
aims, how the
All
mission
the
aims to serve all the residents
so-
of the region.
Partnership.
I
What
have right
Tracy
here.
shared are these draft vision
So this
statements.
is more specific.
Missions
Before we
from
get
park
back to the
agencies like
regional
Anoka
development
County.
Here,
The Parks Department is to
Values of-
what I shared
positively
was
impact the quality of
input
life in
from-
Anoka County.
from you all,
Provide
from the
trucks,
Metropolitan Parks and Open Space
leisure
Commission.
service,
We had a survey last
for
fall,
public,
and you came up with some great ideas.
protection,
Agencies
natural
did the same thing, so
environment,
that's what we're doing
including the
here.
Council of Citizens and supporting the strong.
What I didn't share in that summary was
I think
that
that's
we
really
also
cool.
got another response
But it's
that
also,
included sort of
you know, look at all these
another
things, like this is the
definition of vision
counties.
statement about
You know,
where you want to go,
This is the
how you
park
see the
board,
future.
you know, so,
It should be short.
we just made one copy of this because, you know,
And you can certainly read
so
the
if you
rest
step
there.
back and just think about what is our.
What I
reason for
appreciated
being, what, you know,
was
what are your-
there's
what
also
are
a
your
number
thoughts?
of examples
And I'm gonna write
provided
down
here
your
too.
thoughts.
One for Three Rivers at the top and several others here, just
Four
as a means
seasons.
to
Four seasons
share
of
ideas
welcoming,
for sort of
inclusive, safe and
brevity,
fun.
succinctness,
outdoor
inspiration,
experiences.
Sure.
a whole variety of
I
different
don't-
things. And there's a few from our agencies.
Love it.
I actually did some homework.
We also wanted to
Like,
share
with
this is a
Seattle.
compilation
Yeah.
of our regional
So,
park
well, everyone
knows.
agencies, vision, mission, and value statements.
Tell me what you said.
So-
Four seasons,
Some have vision, some have mission, some
welcoming,
have values, some have all three. And so that's a
inclusive,
compilation that was provided.
safe,
as
and
well.
fun
So,
outdoor
to your question,
experiences.
Commissioner,
King
County
what
Parks
we're
and
aiming to do
Parks
today is to
Managed
focus
by
attention
It's not gonna
on
be required.
these statements that are on these posters here. And to get your
Sure,
feedback,
to highlight
especially,
them,
but all of your
Count one
feedback
of those, yeah.
about what resonates and what you like about
That's
some of
nice
the
and
words
short.
and phrases you might see here.
Yeah, and know that, just put
If
four
you feel like
seasons
something's
of,
missing, or if you feel like there's gaps, like we're
Yeah.
not hitting the mark, we want to know about that as well. And then, of course, related to that, if
Jonathan
you have some
pulled this
new
together.
you know,
ideas,
it could also be
we'd like to
something
hear that
like
as
an
well. So
invitation
we've got these markers that we can use to perhaps circle words that you might like.
to enhance one's
maybe
health
you
while.
Cross some things out if you really don't like something, but ultimately, you know, these
Yes.
spaces are for you
Yeah.
and us to write
Enhance
on.
one's well-being.
Add some additional
And I wanna-
words and
That's also
phrases
what
if
we're
we
looking at.
want to.
And
So
And
that's kind of the
relationships.
main thing we're here to
I'm
do
wondering if
today.
this
If you want to take a
should be
few
a
moments
place
to
where we say.
in our
read
region,
some stuff
of
about
what
park
agencies
Parks and
have,
Recs,
or
what
some of the
the
responses in
regional
full that you
system
provided previously.
is as
Feel
opposed
free.
to other
And
systems,
then,
or if that fits in somewhere
spend all
else.
time with posters.
And so
Um,
it kind of depends on
I
how
often
you
go
want
through
to
the
reverse
rivers,
it, like when you say
Yeah.
values, like.
Yeah.
Not.
Their mission
We should
is
say
to
mission
promote
statement,
environmental
then I do.
stewardship.
If you have it in
through
stuff
recreation,
that
No,
should
no,
hide
I
on
don't
regional
have
parks,
it. I
different
tell
from
you,
local
but
parks,
but
right?
yeah,
Federal parks.
Well, you know, one
I don't
thing,
know if any of
Some of
you
that
guys see this. These are all the
falls
different
down to
county
the
agencies.
you know, there's a lot of
Washington
different ways you can
County,
approach,
providing
development
quality
statements,
services
like
through
vision,
responsible
mission,
leadership,
and
innovation,
values. And, you know, a lot of
and the
people
cooperation
kind
of
of focus
dedicated
in on,
people.
on
You know,
keywords, right?
right.
Statements,
I like
words
that.
that have the most
That
meaning.
that can
So,
apply
you know,
to
this
anything,
first
it doesn't
set
really speak
that's
to
included
parks.
here, that's kind
Is
of,
it maybe
it's
the
oriented
counties?
around
Not
Oh, it is.
four words.
Oh, it is,
that
it
have
is,
sort of
never
a
mind.
line
Not everybody.
with the word.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and
Yeah,
see some of
that's
them.
right.
Do.
And I'll put my
Belonging, connection.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's enough, but if someone only read
But
this
what, so
poster,
mission,
So,
it's our reason for being, what are some
and see
elements
its other
that just
context,
maybe,
Maybe there's other words that resonate with
it's
you.
our reason.
You know, we can take those
Put the word
words
providing
and,
before four seasons, providing
So-
four seasons.
play with them a little bit, right? Yeah. One of the ideas we had is like, refrigerator magnets, right? You've probably seen
I know
that,
that is
poetry
pretty say this
where you
when I
kind
was
of
in
move
the
around,
legislature,
you know.
they give me like a minute
That's kind
and a
of one
half
of the fun
to
parts
like
of
the
developing
entire
these
system.
types of vision and mission
Often
statements.
say
is
that,
There's a lot of different
try
ways
to
you
sum
can
it
wrap
up.
this.
So there's
that
so much else that we
we
can talk
provide,
about.
I think,
Are getting
are
into
sort
the
of the
nitty-gritty as far as
words.
policy comes
access
back to
So, anyway.
is this
natural
the
resource.
role of
opportunities.
There's tons of things where it's like, yes, it's good to do,
I like that.
but are we the ones that should be doing it?
Different than going to
Yep.
the same process.
Where's-
Like,
Right.
sometimes
Yeah.
I sum it up for like, see it our way first, and I'll say, we're like the state tax system in
Overall,
your
that's sort of the space we're talking about.
Of course, that's not our vision, but the whole.
Well, and it's
vision
interesting
statements that
because
will have
the first
opportunity, or you'll have an
they've got a
opportunity to talk about.
proposed
Those are
redistricting map
oriented
that's
from
sitting
what
up
we
there
do
right
as
now,
well.
and
Say we,
I was looking
we're
at
talking
the
about
new
the
district that I would
implementing
have.
agency and
And
council
I-
partnership.
of course, I counted the number of
Council
townships.
implementing agencies.
But then I counted the
Particularly
number of parks,
implementing agencies.
and I would have
Well,
Spring
so
Street Park,
this will
Cottage
guide
Grove would be,
all
Millsfield.
the
Yeah.
meetings, but then guide.
Yeah, I mean, I'd Lake Billsby,
long-term
you know, and it's just like part of Afton,
Close down
state
from
park,
here.
it's like, oh, wow. So,
Yeah,
That's some heavy responsibility.
values that.
No, those are,
have
like, and it's huge.
it's really huge.
I was thinking I'm heading to Rochester, I feel like I'm halfway there, and I'm like, oh. I'm
You
still
are
in-
halfway there.
Yeah, you get to Randolph, yeah.
It turns out Rochester's not that far away
Yeah.
either.
The one that I have.
It seemed like a long ways away when I was a little kid, we'd be going to the cities from just south of Rochester. It seemed like forever.
Enjoy the nature or empower.
Well,
it's
you
I
knew
used
it
to
too,
drive
because,
up
yeah.
with my mom from there.
So I
We'd go down every other
don't know what
weekend.
section. So that was the only one that I have.
Stop at Blue Ridge.
Yeah.
Right.
Both
Or the Black Stallion.
Yeah. Do you like anything here, Kim?
I was thinking about.
Do you like any of these things?
Oh, I'm trying to think, so like some of the other
Those,
things talk about like environmental stewardship and those things, education, but like what do we really provide? I guess. Like what are we, do we know what other people think we're known for?
So on the
Like
far
the regional
right
system.
end of that spectrum,
None of them
you've got
I think that's the question
which is to, you know,
Or
essentially
is the
put
role,
the reins
is
of
the
of
vision
same
for,
thing,
not
yeah,
for
those
Met
plans,
Council, but
irrigation.
for the regional process.
Since you look at a unit
Right.
plan, and say, is this plan consistent with
I
policy?
think,
You look
I
at
don't
policy
want to
plan
answer your
drafts,
question, but
is this
like, I think it's what Lisa said, like, it's known, I think we're known for having high-quality, natural resource-based parks that are so close to people.
And unique.
Yeah,
No park system is the same, you know.
yeah.
In a vision, so.
Unique experiences.
Yeah.
But in this case, you know, it says empower.
Unique learning experiences.
So.
One of the things that, and I don't mean to get us off track or anything at all, but I know Emma that I told you that our system relies on both the regional
Yeah, I like
parks
the
and
meaning of the
space
space.
systems.
Where it's going.
And we go
But
back and
I
think about
have a
the
feeling
role
that
that the
if
parks
something
play.
like government
and
and power is people get
just,
and negative.
Right.
I do like the work.
Kind of on the ecosystem side, our conversations are almost entirely like direct recreational focus without the kind of broader.
So leave it alone then.
Right, and a lot of our park reserves are meant to be undeveloped really.
What's the one, and I know it's used for hunting, but I think it's otherwise forestry. I haven't memorized the whole thing yet.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of an open space?
It's a huge open space.
I mean, it's
not ours, it's the state.
No, that's right, but it's open space, and
Vision
it's,
statements,
with the exception of hunting, I don't think there's.
Some of the ones that we stick
Birding,
with.
lots of birding.
Oh, is there?
That's great for what, yeah.
But it's not very
It's not
accessible.
Oh, not because of the
Well, it's a wildlife management area.
Yeah, that's right. Never mind.
Differentiation.
No.
One is the nature.
Can I just put unique
The other is
experiences and high-quality natural resource-based?
Oh, I like that.
Like, it's something like that, because I just, when I heard you say, well,
So
what are we
expand
really?
a little bit under your stewardship tab, like, that's the right place to put it. We have
Four
inspired future
seasons,
generations to
learning
preserve and restore,
experience,
yes. But our current
In a
generation
way,
is also
for
for
sure.
the stuff that us now do should
Natural
be
resource
policies
based
that
parks and trails.
preserve and restore and
Economic.
for the
Yep,
future.
yep.
How do we get?
That's why I
I
think
think
you know, a shorter
Get
version
into
of
policies,
pages.
so we have
It's
things
We asked
about.
for a
It's
two-sentence
harder when
vision,
you're
but I think
writing it versus like on a laptop.
Yeah, no, I think that's how you do these, like, just keep working the language, and it can be really circular. So 4 seasons of unique learning experiences
The only one that I would
in a high-quality natural resource.
Oh, right, yeah.
I
still like that.
What's in the actions?
Well, I added the words
That make sure.
Great.
When they come along, go.
but you don't have to add all this.
I like it.
Well, it's the words from up above,
It is
unique, safe and fun outdoor experience.
How is it
We aren't-
It's
We're not
something you're
like
always
the
striving
county
for.
board,
Everything.
city council, things like that.
Yeah.
I had
That
a,
means listening
I had
to
a
people,
safe.
empowering people, means having a sense of belonging.
There's the ongoing debate about should the council be appointed or should it be? The argument for the appointment.
No, that's from
is
Metropolitan.
that they tap it and for the election cycle, to be able to have a longer term vision. That's one of the things that is key about differentiating the council from every other government body.
I promise I'll be able to understand
that.
In some ways.
I'll help you interpret later.
Yeah.
4 seasons. Okay, we're at about 10 minutes. Are you guys ready to change?
They can also appear as.
1 minute, and then we're gonna rotate. Okay, you guys, anything else that, like, just ideas or concepts you wanna make sure that, because I'll start by telling them what that's.
At our center.
Is it, would
You know,
it
so
be true to
what I'm saying
say
is,
something about like,
We've got a lot of
like, you know, plans would be to
considerations
people or indigenous something?
accessibility and values.
I don't really know any of the language, but.
Oh, sure, yeah, we're not committed
Right.
just to making spaces, we also protect ours, like, the parks or something, but also like our commission, is a thing.
I'll say the plants and animals.
Yeah,
Futures, so maybe some.
I have friends that are building a home out in Lake. I'm sorry, it's really awful.
They're finally doing the
Are
development.
there any?
So, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
On here that-
Anyway, but they are putting,
Inspiring
it's not their
or-
landscaping, it's gonna
Do
be
you
all the
focus a
nature
little bit so far on,
experiences in the
That's
space
very
of
step forward,
but also
protect.
inclusive,
sense.
welcoming,
Yeah.
safe,
It's a lot less
barrier-free
water.
process.
Yeah, these feel.
Okay,
planning.
Anything
Yeah.
that excites
Yeah,
us.
and that's okay.
oh, yeah.
So whether that's.
I'm a huge
I
fan.
just
of
had
that.
to make that there, then
in our.
So this is like,
My second favorite one is
It's like
Washington County.
Government
Yeah,
processes
roundabout
that
thing
that
that we
match the
did
same values as the
out
places.
It's
at
just
Three
so
Rivers
straightforward.
with,
Yeah,
And that process.
on the strategic planning discussion.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, now I get it.
It shapes it
Okay.
too.
Why don't you guys go over to Tracy?
We'll rotate in the.
Tony, you guys go over to Colin.
Everybody's.
And then you get into the
JV, Bob, and,
And then bring us up.
yeah.
Gotta get the dinner
No,
made.
I might go further down.
Yeah, I had it, but don't hurt my phone.
No, we're gonna get to. Thank you, you too.
Thanks. Hello.
Welcome.
We get two staff, right?
Welcome to the.
Okay, yeah, how fun is this, Jonathan, huh?
hilariously fun.
Very good sport. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
You gotta double it.
Thoughts on the page?
My backup shoveling snow set.
Bob, you can sit right there.
Slow.
Just a real quick introduction, you guys
I would love
already
always
heard,
just, you know,
we've
the
got,
friends maybe
the
doing the
full
snow.
set, but,
It's nice, like I was in Iowa playing golf. Now it's just start off right on a screen right now.
additional
And but then I just hear my neighbor with this no back and I'm like, oh, I will just pretend I know you. So he moved it all and I was just so excited to send some cookie stuff. And that was it.
I had my brother drove to Kansas City last weekend to play golf, and he was experiencing 7-degree weather while I was shoveling like backbreaking snow.
I know, yes,
Yeah, yeah, I know, I should, I didn't hear. My neighbor came over and did it. It was so much fun. Okay, I'm gonna wait till Jonathan comes back to tell you. I'm just gonna tell you what they, so the last group, I think the mission, like we have the least amount of material to work with right now.
first.
So we'll need your help. Jonathan, thank you for, this was just some of the information that you provided. It's actually super helpful to just look at the missions of the different agencies. So that's right here. You heard Tracy go through these 3 ideas. You know, regional parks and trail system, we provide welcoming,
One of our
inclusive,
implementing
safe,
part of a set of
effective, empower
vision
communities,
value statements from
protecting nature,
implementing
inspiring,
jurisdictions, just as another
empathize,
set of
and
examples.
curious.
In
Okay,
our
here's
last
the last group.
conversation.
So these are just, again, important elements. So now I want you to just tell me what's resonating.
What do you like today?
So providing 4 seasons of welcoming, inclusive, safe, and fun outdoor experiences.
Yeah, I like that.
She's like a phrase or a
An
sentence.
invitation to enhance
You know,
one's
we
health,
asked
well-being,
for
and
2 sentences
relationships in
here,
our
maybe
region's parks
we
and
went a little
trails.
bit too deep on that, but
So
you know,
mission, again, is
vision's
our
often a
reason
little
for
bit
being.
brief.
Why do we exist? We
So
provide significant access to natural resource activities, right? Your backyard.
One thing I've
Our
got
backyard.
curious patients is
Unique learning experiences in a high-quality natural resource-based parks and trail system.
identify.
Love it.
Yeah.
4 seasons, now you'll see a little bit more mix. 4 seasons of unique, inclusive, safe, fun, outdoor learning experiences in a high-quality natural resources parks and trail system. Little wordy, but I love it.
Even.
Commitment to nature, plants and animals. Commitment to indigenous people.
It's
A
still
parting
good.
gift of,
And.
make sure we include
Nail that
access.
down a little bit.
And we're all about providing
We
access
these
to
statements
create
to
outdoors.
have a
So,
sense of
so those are just
what
some of
that
the
actually
ideas
means relative to the.
along with this. Again, we haven't discussed mission as much, and we don't have as much material, but why do we exist? You know? So there's no right answers here.
I'm gonna add
And
one that I
I
think,
system from.
No,
Well,
it's
it's
just
to
the
require.
way you always say.
But.
I always
Space for
offer,
future.
I get,
Some of these like.
yeah,
Parks and
and I
trails.
said, so I have permission in the future to say.
We have a little bit of.
Thinking about that
Any
lately
kind of
too,
meeting, it
uh,
never occurred to me.
we're in the
Nobody
50th
wanted to do it.
anniversary of the regional
It was
park system
hilarious.
next
I
year.
do like that because it highlights that we are
What
denying
we've done in those last
just
50 years,
recreational
we've acquired a
space,
ton of stuff, we've built
nor
out the system.
wilderness that's just happening.
And then, of course, what do
It
we want
is
to do
very much
next?
the intersection, it doesn't do us any good
And
to
can we
have
use this as an
habitat
opportunity
and wildlands.
to,
People can use them, and it doesn't have any
it's
good
something
for
worse
us
than
to
a
have
happy place,
people being able
but
to
for
do
the
stuff.
vision
Not in the future.
to, I mean, we want to take care of it now and we want to prepare for the future. So whatever we do needs to be to have kind of a now and now.
You know, the other thing.
And acquisition involves into that.
Those that are up there, I like a lot of them.
Charlotte,
So,
North Carolina.
I agree with you, now and then.
Not far from the walk.
So create a now, like set of priorities and a future set of priorities, or what were you saying?
No, it would,
We were doing for the now and what
But he
has to do both.
yeah, we're providing,
They have a lot about.
we're connecting, to connect people with nature today
Yeah. And.
and maintain the opportunities to do so in the future. Someone, I'm not a wordsmith,
Now, I'll go out
and
and
this
do
stuff
this
is not my
Oh,
specialty.
this is right
But I'm
on
not going
the
out.
Quiet space
I like
for the future.
That's how the.
Yeah, connecting.
I did not do that, that was,
You know, not only is
my
to
immensely talented staff.
to preserve.
Mine was
restore,
5 sentences long and I had to explain it every time.
Jonathan, connecting people to the outdoors
Yeah,
today.
coming to the outdoors is great, again, more generic summary better.
I mean, I get, he recruited his daughter.
providing
son-in-law,
stewardship.
Son and daughter-in-law to go with them, and they were excited.
To ensure the outdoors are there for the people of tomorrow, or
They
something.
didn't want everybody
to
down.
provide stewardship to ensure that
It was.
outdoor for the tomorrow, the next generation, future
Yeah,
generation, that's how it was.
Future generations, yeah.
I love that.
That doesn't.
Yeah.
And one of the things I struggle with in this, when it comes to mission, vision,
I'm familiar with.
I get it, you can have a regional vision. Mission, there's 10 agencies, they all have 10 different missions. And to superimpose an overarching mission
You know,
on the 10 agencies, I can see some blowback coming from that. And so that had me think about what is the mission
or.
What is the function, what is the purpose of the Metropolitan
Might be
Council
considered an
with
expert.
regard
You know, I
to
think there's
the
different
regional parks?
So we said like ensure
reactions
each,
to that type of thinking that,
you know, ensure each of the regions, agencies, body parts of the council are working
You said you're what?
How many people
in the same direction,
People just show
How
up.
or they have all the tools that they need to do the best.
Like, it's like supported and working,
Not even one.
there's, you know what I mean, there's
For the best of
something.
the people.
Versus, you know, drive by.
You know what you need, everything not, you need one of IA new writing stuff and tell write my mission, and that's it.
We were trying that the other day before. Yeah.
Oh my
The
God.
robot, the bot can write.
In the mission of the Met Council, again, I go back to the creating awareness.
Like, that is a
Of the,
really
Yeah.
engagement where you as a family go.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
Young person.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it again, although you might hate it, but I see that what is missing is part of the mission needs to be that this council makes sure that the users know what is out there.
No, that's Bob's point.
I may not be very fancy, but I'm consistent.
Not all.
That is, okay, hang on. Be right back.
See, I just have that little problem. We should have horseback riders, you know, horseback riding now. There is, she's supposed they provide horses now. Oh,
Celebrate 4 years.
I think,
Like culturally for my
Huh?
This is
Yeah,
way.
But they
But it's not that far, and then I should know all of this stuff.
Yeah, you should know it.
And they have a whole map that opens up. And it goes from their,
Okay, make sure all residents know about the regional parks and trail system.
Yes,
with some photos.
and what they can get from it, or what they can do.
For the urban bird collective is one.
And what they can do.
Amazing. There's hiking groups that are for like community.
That's what I feel like, you know, the parks are working great, the council is working great, but they don't know. Yeah.
Still a lot, there's still a gap there. Yeah. What are some other just like critical elements? Can anyone unpack access? Like what's our role of access?
Them bringing community into these spaces and kind of getting people.
Maybe, and access is such a hard word.
The access to me as an architect is like, whoa, you're telling me that there are no roads to the park, that's bad. Yeah.
Access is about this, it's about this
Yes.
too.
It's like a age-friendly, you know, and no, I don't think it's inclusive the other way, but the other word, but yeah, it should be age-friendly for everyone. And then for all abilities.
People.
It's on the DNR, ran an ad the
So
other
not
day
only does
about free days
say, hey, you're
at
welcome.
the state park.
We also need to make it possible for us.
Access to me
to
means
identify
transportation.
What is the
Means
level
the
that's
ability
appropriate.
to, if you're poor, to be able to get in
That are
there,
offered,
into the parks.
all of them are welcoming and inclusive, but we also.
And you know what also is information,
This is the level where I have to
we
ask
know
you
how to get there, but
before I go
if
try
I don't
to-
know how
Go
to
to
pay
the
for the parking,
Here's your
or,
green,
you know,
here's your
have
blue, here's your
to,
black. I can
or
show
if
up
you don't
with
have a parking
policy.
fee, or if you
Which
can
should I go
find
down?
it, or you can bring
Yeah.
your own equipment or not, so I'll say information.
You don't have to have it.
How do we come in with a good?
Knowledge is power.
scheme of-
I think Jonathan Lee had something valuable when he said, the mission of
Yeah, you're still gonna have.
implementing agencies, when he gets into the mission,
Still not.
of the Met Council.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like,
yeah, we probably.
But also, if you have done.
Right. To me, the Met Council's greatest strength should be the things we focus on with regards to trying to define its mission. And I personally think the Met Council is in a place right now, they're teetering
This
on
is story,
the
that's the kind of thing,
because of all
all that kind of stuff
Yeah,
comes up
And,
from my experience of
the better they can define their role, the more successful they will be in the future. And I see the role of the Met Council with regards to parks is primarily being able to do the research in most agencies.
So how do you make
About visitors, about the general population. They used to do a general population survey every single year, and that helped define quality of life. And parks was always a huge component of that quality of life.
It's programming, but also
So there's great value
it's some
in,
sort of a communication.
to collect and analyze regional
And
data,
that comes down to.
and to also work across systems.
I don't know how.
Because the Met Council is uniquely posed to try to integrate transportation in parks.
Yes.
They're uniquely posed to try to integrate, to look at, to study, and to provide ideas on how to better integrate housing.
That's where I would say.
It's sort of, it's that macro level stuff. I don't think that they should dictate it as much as they should analyze and educate and innovate creative solutions on integrated topics. To me, that's the very strongest.
The map that shows, to me, that map with the bubbles and
how do our parks say,
potential future trails or links,
Urban Bird Collective, if you wanna do this, or if you wanna do this, we're talking.
Right, well, maybe
zones
that's
of
something we could
opportunity.
do is have like a little directory.
Where should we
for
go? Put
at some
Yeah,
of
so it's
these
like,
spaces.
you go to a park that says,
Goals.
like, you know, like, park
in
that
terms
says
of
activities present.
integration between.
Yeah,
Swim for the month.
And then
Like, each one of those activities is reserved, that's your one.
Methods to ensure that everybody comes there happy experience. So who is everybody and what's their happy place? That's your problem to figure it out. But this is like a big general idea.
One of the things I worry about, as a planner, I'm by nature a worrier. I worry about climate change,
But you know what I mean, there's a way where.
mass flooding events, 500-year floodplain,
So I
will be
go,
100-year floodplain, not that far in the future. And also I look at severe droughts.
parts of it.
And then I look at the housing problem, and it's like, is there an integrated solution to protect the 500-year floodplain so we don't develop it? And create more housing so that housing is affordable.
So
And the American dream of having single-family homes is affordable. That relates to sewers, which is the Met Council controlled conduit to growth.
You have an adventure that is progressive and fun.
Again, it's integration. It's understanding the integration of multiple systems. I mean, this is kind of heavy stuff. It doesn't go over well on a slogan page.
And then automatically.
To me, that's what the Met Council is.
So there's a.
Should be the struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, because we got parks. The 10 agencies have it figured out on how to serve people really well. But we live in a bubble, more or less, when it comes to housing, transportation, and those other systems of housing. We partake in the fact that Three Rivers is being standalone.
Is that what that is?
Partake in it.
I thought it was something.
Whereas the other county agencies are sort of kind of addressing
That's what.
Excuse me. Tracy, Colin, you guys ready?
Right.
2 minutes or whenever you want to. Okay, let's just unpack this, make sure I got it. So integration of multiple systems, how do our systems work together? Sort of this is, you're talking about the role of the
And the role of the council is to understand and promote integration of regional systems
Implementing agencies or citizens to get.
to
Like, they all
ensure
need long-term things, but my entire point of the council is to be a long-term plan.
the greatest good for the greatest people.
So,
I don't know,
yeah,
something.
vision, I'd say, we wanna call out that not only are we providing.
You know, the question
today,
about
we're also guaranteeing.
broad-based population spill
In perpetuity.
or
So the vision,
This notion of the future is really key.
Yeah,
to me is one of the
everything about
questions.
this, whether it's, you know,
That should
quality or
affect
basic
the acquisition
or
issue.
belonging or
What,
placement to connect.
you know, what's the overlying emphasis coming out of here?
All of that we're saying.
In terms of how they're going to encourage the communities to develop.
So we're saying our vision
And at
not
least
only is
that,
about
that suggestion that
now, it's not even just what we want to be doing.
well, we need to go
Beyond
another
that.
10, 15, 20
We are
miles
very
outside and start
stuff.
developing another major park
Improving the
across the lake.
provide
You know, some of those.
You're right, I mean, it's, we've always, since the inception of the Met Council, it's always been focused on the concept of a super
Well,
strong
I
urban
just have to, I'd
core.
be remiss not
With
to.
all roads, all
mention
paths
that,
leading to
the
Rome,
other-
basically, and everything to the center, and trying to contain growth from spreading out too much. The model is not busted. You're gonna have 22% of the population working 3 to 5 days a week. And it's going to be the well-off class that can afford to do that. They are going to spread to the winds, and then they're gonna need innovation centers in Nodes, in Chanhassen, in Maple Grove, in all these suburban centers. We're going to see a fundamental shift. There will always be an urban core, but it's not going to be the epicenter of everything. And when that happens, we're also going to see the population around these things develop even more so.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the situation, is that gonna
People get the equipment that they need.
happen for sure, or will there be things that will deal with some of
Are talking about the outdoors,
threats
in a very,
that will be successful and therefore maybe make it more attractive?
That's really what we're
Again,
focusing a lot of our.
right now, we're in a, let's get out of the downtown, because it's dangerous. You know, unless we want side, all the companies moving out. Leaving a great big empty cabin downtown.
My guess, this is just conjectures, I think they'll be refilled in a vibrant than it was before even. But it won't be big giant corporations, it'll be a lot of startups, because the rent will have readjusted. And I think we're just gonna see dispersal of everything away from the centralized model. I just want to make sure we have enough land in 100 years from now. I mean, what are we at, 3.2 million people here, something like that, or 3.6 in the metro? Yeah, okay, what happens when we're at 7 or 8? I'll be long gone, but we will be there someday.
That's why the acquisition
Right.
is really
And
critical.
so we gotta figure out what we gotta buy, and what, and then again, I'm arguing, let's buy everything within the 500-year floodplain. Because you shouldn't build everything. And then let's make it. Let's terraform, let's go nuts. Seriously, we need more lakes. We're in the land of 10,000 lakes, most of them are.
In our last group, I just want to point out that they really dug my house.
Okay, so that's it. I'm talking about trails in particular. I don't know if it's in
And this is in the,
but a vision
Maybe it's cheaper
where
to build lakes.
real wooded
the
area.
user doesn't have to
And they
care
become
who's
storage too
responsible
for
for
the
the
flooding
flooding.
events. And they become
And
reservoirs
they just
for the
go
drought.
and have the same experience
And then you
everywhere.
can
and
bring
it's
all
good.
the snow to those lakes.
2 minutes are up.
So we see it.
Yeah, okay, let's move. Let's move.
And consistent,
Thank you.
connected, consistent, and communicated.
All right,
There we go.
Bob,
Literally.
Jonathan, thank you. You guys go over to Tracy.
I will.
Get more coffee.
Oh, is it?
That's what they told me a few meetings ago, and I think it's probably true, because, yeah, but placebo effect. Should have told you.
Can I get it there?
Huh?
Can I get it there?
Absolutely.
I wish it was that, but, you know.
And, Tess, run over. we're going-
Just
you
a
guys
quick
are-
orientation to where we are.
Welcome to the values
You
table.
know, we shared.
Anthony, how much fun is this?
This is the compilation in full, yeah,
Sorry.
take a look.
Anthony, you're a psycho.
Us to, my.
We have a partnership.
One.
To state.
He's a snowboarder, but he is a cyclist. Like, I run into him when I'm on the east side. He's not on his bike.
The metro
Hey,
and
Anthony,
around
how's it going?
station.
And I run into him on the west side. I'm like,
And then,
Creating.
this is the
Okay.
set that I think Tracy referenced.
we're gonna make this
is,
painless.
Agencies.
10 minutes, anyone can do
Mission,
that.
vision, value statements from around, the metro
But
area.
we're talking about the
Some
mission
agencies
right
have
now, so
three.
our
Some
reason
have
for being,
one
why do
or
we
the other, or a
exist?
couple.
some.
And like,
But really
so
where
the
we wanna
first
focus
group,
energy
let me just quickly
is on
say,
these
providing
literacy
four,
here.
like, they were just
It's
right out. 4 seasons of welcoming, inclusive, safe, and fun outdoor experiences. An invitation to enhance one's health while building relationships in our region's parks.
So,
There's a sense of.
We provide significant access to natural resource activities right in your own backyard.
the
Unique
three
learning
sort of
experiences and high quality natural
where,
resources.
what do you like?
Now they start like combining these
Sponsoring
ideas, 4
the
seasons
size
of
of the
inclusive, safe, fun, outdoor learning experiences and a high quality natural resource. Parks and trails.
We just visited.
There was some party thoughts, commitment to native plants and animals, commitment to indigenous people, include access, do we have access, there's no concern. And then this was the last group, which was just a model of district fraud, to be honest. They kind of.
Is that what it feels?
Yeah, well, there was a little pushback, but that's okay, to acquire space for future parks and trails. They were spent a lot of time on what is the role of the Metropolitan Council. They were like, the agencies, we know parks. We don't need, you don't need to tell us what our reason for being is. What is the reason for being for the regional park system? You know, there's some discussion about celebrating 50 years. Next year, we're gonna be 50 years old. Michelle's 50 years old. What is the next 50 years like? What are we doing now? What are we gonna do next? Connecting people to the outdoors today, providing stewards to ensure outdoors are here for future generations. Sort of a hodgepodge of ideas, and then we can make this one the same.
Really hard to
And, you know, then there's what I said about focus on the council, and then Jonathan and
Another
I
comment that came in was that.
ensure each upper regional agencies are supported, working toward the best outcomes possible, create awareness of independent agencies, make sure all residents know
Work as a set.
about the regional park system.
You know, you might have a pretty succinct vision
Monica
statement.
was talking
You're not
about
able to capture
access,
everything that you're looking
let's
for.
make sure our
So you put
opportunities are age
different things in
friendly,
a mission
allability,
statement that's for
Yeah,
values,
transportation,
describe
connected,
additionally
free
what you're all
entry,
about.
and that people have the information they need to be successful.
So I would say there's sort of 3 layers of mission that all kind of go on top of each other. First you have, what is the mission of a regional park or trail? So in terms of like, when someone's gonna go to something designated as a regional park or trail, what kind of experience does that provide, and what is it for? Then you have, what is the mission of the regional park and trail system? So
And it deals
going
with,
beyond
it
any
deals with.
individual unit, the fact that there are a collective of units identified that way, what's the mission of doing that
To
group?
some degree, it deals with.
And then, what is the mission of the governing bodies that create and run the system? Field POSCA, councils, and how they work to.
Peruvians may be different.
So, the mission of a park, the mission of the regional park system, and the mission of the regional park system's governance. Because, you know, the mission of us as MPOS is a little bit different than what is the mission of having a park.
Historically,
But they all
immigration
connect,
patterns
going down the
and,
line.
relocation patterns within the metro.
So in terms of,
Understand where are new immigrant hotspots?
So is.
And how is that progressing there? Is it always within these certain neighborhoods? Is it
So that's really what we offer.
And if you can understand that,
Driven
you
by
can figure out better
an
ways.
alignment with the mission. Like, we don't really, you know what I mean, in terms of.
yeah, but what I'm getting at with that is,
If we
what we're starting to talk about in terms
better
of
prepare for
community
that
stuff at
around
the value level. So your actual mission for the parks is to create spaces and activities and opportunities. But we also are responsible for making sure that proper community engagement happens, which happens before you get to a park.
About this one that I read earlier.
So we have to call out, we wanna have our processes
kind of goes through.
We also have, our processes have values in addition to our on-the-ground park values.
And all kinds of different facilities throughout the region.
Like, so create fair processes such as expectations for
Other regional.
Yeah.
But also important to connect with the local system.
But you're also saying that it's just part of the DNA. Like that's the idea, is this idea of community,
Yes,
the
right.
way that
Be
community.
proactive, so you're not,
The process of community
16 what is happening.
they've always,
Yeah.
they've always had it in
It's
their
been
report.
something.
The quality of community
No worries.
is standard.
Resilience.
But, and you see some things in here, so like,
I think I know what it means.
creating awareness of the implementing agencies, and and but also what I was mentioning over there, and what Bob has talked about a few times, being able to have a central communication infrastructure that crosses the implementing agency political boundaries is also part of the council's goal.
Okay.
So that's, that's a part of a council mission to create a
Again,
unified system that goes beyond just what the parks are.
This is the part though that gets, like talking just in terms of, just experiencing. Like, every system has a brand, right? And it is driven based on the contract with the community around it. As much as we believe it's regional, it's totally controlled. The reason Three Rivers is the way they are is because their constituents are wealthy, and they have a couple locations that have high concentration. They are Three Rivers, they are everywhere, their trail system is everywhere, and their strength is everywhere. Now, I'm like, when it all comes down to it. And so, I mean, and I'm critical, like in the revenue, like it's interesting to watch the decisions they make. Like the decision they make around an equity program where you can get a free cross-country ski pass, but you can't get a free downhill ski pass. We're not gonna mess with that, right? That's a real example of something that's really interesting. You mean that, Three Rivers? So you mean I can't bring 40 black kids out to Highlands to go snowboarding for free? But I can go around the corner, you'll give a trail pass to anybody who wants to sign up for cross country skis.
But not the invasives.
What is that?
Yeah, you tell me.
It's about the revenue stream, it's about Highland is busy as can be, that it's a loss of financial, they would never say that, that's really what it is, it's a loss of financial opportunity, because if I got 40 kids renting snowboards, that's 40 snowboards they can't
Well,
rent.
over the
That
years since
actually adds up to $600. That's not a little bit of money, right? A cross-country ski pass is $80 for a season. So I'm glad to give a cross-country ski pass to somebody who doesn't know cross-country ski.
So there's some stuff that we're doing that's
I think the intent is
a
that.
little performative because it's not consistent.
Let me say, and even as I'm critical of that, deeply critical of that, right? I also get it. So you've been to Highland, that's what I meant. Okay.
That's 20-year-old.
Very good.
Sorry.
Washington County is
And I'm so lucky to work for you.
it's like I am so in Washington.
Yeah.
And I live in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Like I'm in Washington County again, like in Westbrook, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're in Washington County Park System. It's faster for people in Washington County Park System.
A lot.
Than to go to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And I'm on Snelling and Grant.
Yeah.
I can be in a Washington County Park Festival.
All you have to do is like get on Maryland,
Yeah.
go 10 minutes, done.
Done. 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes. That's 15. So it's just, and the Washington County Park System has been driven by the way that Washington County, they have a lot of land, their policy around housing, there's so much stuff that drives the way that they're growing as a system. Dakota County has a very different personality based on the number of the land, the long-term development that's been a part of Dakota County, and did, you know what I mean?
Perception of crime.
So this, the continuity and these consistency and all those things, it's almost an impossibility. I mean, it really is, because that's, you know, you know, you know, this is learning the system. You're gonna, it really is a great thing to do that and measure your experience of Three Rivers Park versus Washington versus Corey County Park versus Noe County Park.
If our agencies have significantly different values and experiences, how do we provide some sort of consistency in spite of it? What are the, like, if this part's not going to be consistent, what is? Maybe it's just communication, maybe it's some design factors.
That's right, it may be standardized wayfinding, it may be, there's something that has, in terms of the mission, we can talk about. The mission for us, right, is providing X and X and X, regardless of which part of the system.
Wherever you are. I'm also thinking, like, in terms of community engagement, I would have to go back and look at a bunch of master plans to see if this shows up, but I'm thinking, imagine a park that sits near the boundary of an implementing agency like Liaison.
Limited number of
In Washington County, but it's not far from Ramsey County. If they do community engagement within Washington County, do they talk to any residents of Ramsey County? And do we require them to?
And what if you're, what if you're Ramsey County? In the middle of the city. Ramsey County is in the city. So is their community engagement is fundamental. And do they align, do they partner with St. Paul?
Does our community engagement cross the boundaries, or do they just limit it to their constituents are?
I mean, those three things.
I think it's often
I think it probably is, because our silo brains in government just don't even consider that as a possibility.
Well, and we do, and they do community engagement so
drive time
driven by
must work at this location job decreases.
rather than community engagement being a regular strategy for being connected. And, you know, and a matter of fact, the end mission for us is using our nature savers, outdoor experiences to build communities. Like literally, like in the end, like that's like always building communities. Is always, it should be, and then what happens is exactly what we're talking about. And Lake Elmo is a great example of a tremendous opportunity to live in Ramsey County. And are having their first experience.
I think for a long time it's really been.
Right, they could throw a rock there.
Your point about,
You know, fishing.
we're working on.
You know, just, you know, Washington County is so full of just, and I think Washington County has built their brand and their identity, and what they see in Ramsey County is an opportunity to deliver on their equity values. So that's how they view Ramsey.
What are we doing?
Because Washington County ain't aware of it.
Parts of it are. It's changed significantly in the last 20 years. Oakdale in particular, right next to Lake Elmo, is in Washington County, and surprisingly diverse. Matamidi? Not.
Oakdale, right off 94, right. Basically cheap wood. That's how Oakdale emerges, right? As you move east, you can't afford Woodbury, so
Oakdale.
It's kind of funny though, because like Matamidi borders 694. It's also in that same range, but our housing has developed differently because of the land available. It's a much physically smaller.
We've got 2 minutes and then we'll get back together.
And as a result, who lives there?
they are, but you know, yeah, I mean, that is, you know, that kind of.
So I didn't get everything here. Tess, I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Really
interesting. I thought you were trying to jump in. But Anthony, we were just like, how do we use our outdoor recreation experience in the community? How do we use our outdoor system? You know, like that was sort of, I didn't capture what you said, which was better.
I mean, I just feel like that's the end game of avoiding.
Yeah, I would take the question mark off of that and say that's the mission statement.
The problem in that is the corruption, which
Yeah, like ultimately, in addition to,
And experiences that build community.
yeah, we mentioned this at a previous stage too, of how it's not always about the activity you're doing. So, yeah, you might be going out hiking, but that's developing you as a person and developing your community and developing your values.
So give me, if this is our reason for being, tell me what it is, 'cause I think you guys are.
Water is important.
It's using our system.
Yeah, people I think are really sort of gravitating towards the brevity and simplicity of this.
Will you guys say what we
also,
talked
Clean air.
about?
everybody's happy place, or my happy place.
We'll try.
Something
Sounds
that's
good.
cool.
I
Right?
think about that
Yeah.
too in
Next
where I lived in like middle, head of the county.
I cheated, I had
Why
another
are they
word,
not
and,
using
you know,
spaces?
you had it mine.
But that's like the closest natural space for these communities, and I don't think they're regional parks. But,
That'll be, it'll be interesting for you to listen to.
That- yeah.
But because you know.
because I see that and I think, oh, this could be a recipe for something,
I do it.
and it's not.
Isn't that a
Out of
value?
But again,
But there's a lot of.
yeah.
Just, you're right on the cradle.
I love that.
You're right.
Right, tell me about
Those small systems. Community sports, that's the foundation, so that's their mission. But you got Hiawatha, that is a regional park.
I love
You
Hiawatha.
know, you got really, you got the Parkway, which is a regional.
Is it?
Yeah, see, that's what I mean, once you get, you're gonna figure this stuff out, because really, that's part of the regional system. You know, Chain of Lakes is itself, that, and then you got Fort Snelling, and.
I would say maybe Parkway, just as you're talking about spaces to kind of just to not do activities. I would go there a lot.
I think there's just so many levels to this. Like, first you have to start with, why do parks even matter? Why should parks exist? Why do we care? And then after you've established that, okay, within that big picture, what is the point of Met Council and the regional system to provide? So like, it's trying to say, you know, our mission, you kind of have to include some pieces of this whole stack for it even to make any sense. It's like, oh yeah, we're providing space for community. Wait, how? What do parks have to do with that? Acknowledge that parks have something to do with that.
I'm gonna pick you guys first. Who wants to just talk a little bit about where we land in this mission? Anthony,
You're gonna make Anthony talk, yeah.
Okay. Hey, we wanna come back together. You don't have to move. People don't have to move, but if everyone could just move in a little bit so you could see one another. We're gonna start with mission because ours is the most important.
Should we move so that more?
I'm just kidding.
Emmett,
Should we go back to our
Should we move
spots?
so that more of it gets picked up by microphones?
Sure,
Probably.
sure. Okay.
I don't know, maybe
My
there's
bad,
somebody
sorry.
actually watching.
You, it's a lot.
Make sure you have one person from each group, not council staff, is gonna report out.
I mean,
Get ready.
I like to believe that we're the highest rated television of the night, but I doubt it.
No, we are. Incredible.
Clearly, millions of people tuned into our live stream, right?
Party over here.
What?
Okay, everyone.
Sorry.
That was okay. Thanks for participating. It went really well. This is low stakes, so we're just getting started with this. So we're going to start with mission, then we'll go over to values, then we'll finish up with vision, because I think that's where a lot of the energy is. But Anthony, do you mind talking a little bit about ideas for the mission?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talked about was this idea of these layered missions between, the implementing agencies, the regional park system, local park systems, trails. Like there's something that a park itself can have a mission inside of, or a trail inside of a park system inside of the regional park system that can be missions. So we talked a lot, but we kind of pushed it down to this idea that what we're really trying to do is create a set of experiences that are more shared across different systems. And in the end, they all build community. That's the end game for us, is building community. And that if that happens, we design experiences that bring families together, build community, and people feel, part of community is the things around belonging and all those things that is achieved for us. But that building community is fundamental, the net outcome of the work that we want to try. So is that, our team can add more to that? Please do.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Tony or Tess?
I think there was some also were developing the person in addition to giving, not just I get to go and do a thing, but I'm going to get something out of that thing. We've talked a bit about health impacts previously, especially in the context of the pandemic. But I think besides that, it also does something for like your character development and what that means and what your values will be for the future and how that goes to future planning of parks, but also future planning of other things. You get something out of those experiences that's more than just the park. And then that feeds into what you're talking about, building community. We're doing a regional planning for parks in the region, but that is under the context of regional development guide, and we talk about development in very like government-y terms of where, what are we building and where, and how does that lead to population growth, but also how does that lead to value growth and quality of life growth and things like that, and how does it all feed into something beyond just green space on the ground.
Thanks, Tony. Tess, anything you want to add to those two?
No.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's going to go for the values team?
I'll go for the values.
Oh, yeah, Monica.
So yeah, we just crash everything and start from, beginning. Now, over the values, in partnership, we talk about including community somewhere on the statement. And equity, we thought that belonging would be a better word because belonging is easy to understand. Equity might be understood in certain places in certain ways. It has a more political way, if I say it. And then, creating participants, inclusive, be safe, and accessible. It's important to be accessible. And accessible, we mean not just, the roads, like age or transportation, language, all that things that come with the access. And then, the processing nature. Stewardship, we kind of put all this here because it sounds great. And, pretty much we talk like we need to be proactive because you don't want to keep fixing the problems that we're going to hit. We have to have a way to see what is going to come and then be proactive and then respond in those ways because there should be ways to see what is, coming, how the population is moving, how the water is going to happen, all those things. I know there are ways that you study because you showed me here, so that would be. And then, more important, the council needs to plan for itself because we want to know, is these are the values for, the MSPAC, is this the values for the council, and is the values that we're going to share with the agencies, or the agencies are going to have their values. Like, it has to be a difference. Like, the council should be higher, general, bigger, macro values, and then from there, everybody has their good place, because we can't just buzz around everybody, apparently. Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to add something else in that one, Bob?
Anyone want to add to that?
I might add on what you're saying about possibly using the word belonging instead of equity. I think it might be both belonging and empowerment. in that we're talking, especially when you get into this, there's a dual role of our planning. We're talking both about the parks, but also the processes that lead to the planning and governance of the parks. So not only are you like welcome to go and do an activity somewhere, but you're also welcome to come and empowered to have your voice heard in our processes like MPOSC or creating a long-range plan, things like that. So how do we use a word or a set of words to convey that not only can you be present, but you have influence?
Yeah, say participating. I mentioned it with Colin's team there. The word empowering, when I see empowering are beside a government facility, I see it as a negative thing. Because government and power should not be together. I do understand the meaning and I like where it goes, like, empower means me participate, have the power to do something new, yes. But if you put it as a value for like a government council, I will, no, I don't fall for that one. Yeah.
It implies permission. Like that's the part that is weird with empowerment.
Yeah.
Is that there's an aspect of it that says, I'm gonna give you permission.
Yeah, it's not my favorite word either. I'm trying to figure out how to convey that with belonging. Like, I think it kind of fit under equity, but we kind of understood that, but the word didn't necessarily convey it. What set of words says that better? I don't know what the answer is.
I think that belonging speaks to how the participant feels. Right, that's what you're kind of getting at, right?
Yes.
That is my experience as a participant and kind of getting at how that feels. The thing about equity and what I think in terms of, if I'm sitting down, talking with Jonathan about parks, what I want is equitable participation. What I want him to invest in, I don't want him to invest equitably, I want him to invest in a manner that achieves equitable outcomes. Like that's I know it's a subtle shift, but that's what I want. I want to show up on any given, I just want to say all the time, I want to show up and I want to lose the ability to predict the race, gender, ethnicity, or income of a snowboarder at Highland Hills. That's what I want. That's our goal, right?
Yep.
Our goal is to lose the ability to predict a mountain biker at Theodore Worth Park based on race, ethnicity, gender, income. Or a canoeer, or a hiker. And right now, we know we can predict those with a lot of certainty. That's the challenge, right? Is to lose the ability to do that. And so that's what equitable outcomes would be, right? Is that there people are participating relative to the population. And because of what's happening in terms of our demographic, we're gonna lose the ability to go as a white man that makes 100K. That's what's gonna happen when we do this work well.
And that requires kind of two different things of not only is one individual feeling like they belong,
right,
but we're also doing something to actively drive which individuals want to even seek out finding out whether they belong.
Yeah, but the point on this one, also belonging is not for the participant only. I see it as the Met Council and the agency, they need to also belong in our community. So this job of belonging, in my perspective, is like they have to do something to belong to us down here. So that's, to me, their value that they have, and not me belonging there. Like that should be their mission. That's their job for them to me go there and work or exercise or do kayaking or something. This belonging to me is like, for, we, the agency and the council, do something so they can belong in this community or in this, region. So we know who you are. I mean, by we, I mean we the people know who you are there up here. I know. Yeah.
I would like to add, if I could, to your well-stated stuff. And that is that I think one of the missions, and Jonathan brought this to mind as well, is to tell the story of the great systems we have. We have now taxes and cold and snow, which people talk a lot about. But we have we collectively have a very positive part of the world that very few others may have around the country. And we have a job, we the Met Council, have a job to tell that story. And I just think that isn't being done. And I think when I look at the mission, that's the kind of mission that could draw people to us rather than lose people to Texas or Florida, which may have warm weather, because my God, they sure have some crummy politics for a lot of people.
Amen.
So, let's tell the story.
That is our competitive advantage.
Huh?
That's our competitive advantage.
It is, it really is.
Well, actually, Bob, that is something that's being worked on.
Yeah.
The communications department is, we talked about it last night at our committee of the whole, the need for, telling the story rather than being the story all the time.
Yeah. I know when we were, changing jobs, I mean, I had an opportunity to go to different places. And certainly one of the things that was crucial in my wife's choices was the education of the communities we were going to. Certainly some of the things that were important to me were some of these aspects that we have as a park and open space commission. So anyhow, just one of the points.
And I think some of that gets to some of what at least was in my head, not necessarily coming out, if you're talking about education. And for a lot of people within the metro area, their educational experience included some degree of outdoor ed in some fashion, whether in the regional park system or a state park or any of several of the outdoor learning centers that are privately owned and run. And that kind of builds into our personal experience that you're getting out of the park systems.
Yeah.
It's part of your education that then leads to a quality of life thing that's hard to measure, but you can feel it in a community. And you go somewhere else where if people didn't have that experience growing up, you can kind of tell in other areas that aren't necessarily about parks.
Yes.
And how do we convey that? And that, I think, is part of our values that we haven't quite figured out how to articulate.
That we have an outdoor culture.
Well, and it's not just an outdoor culture, but it's if you have outdoor experiences, what does that create in terms of your kind of collective psyche? I think some of it, I'll tie back to like one thing that you hear is a commonly repeated thing about indigenous peoples in various places is the idea of the long-term vision of, sometimes you hear 7 generations in some tribal cultures. That idea of we're leaving things for somebody else later. You have a responsibility to care for your neighbor and your environment and things like that. Some of those values come from outdoor experiences and being able to understand things like this tree existed before I was born and it will still exist after I died. This water body that we're polluting is still going to be polluted after I leave. Or if I clean it up now, it will still be clean after I leave. There's sort of a bigness to nature that many of us understand internally, but it's hard to say what that value is.
Infinite sort of.
For a lot of people, natural experiences are tied to their religious values. It's tied to political values. It's tied to how your education works. It's a who you are as a person kind of stuff in addition to just what do you do on the weekend. And after you've had systems that foster that well for several decades, like we have here in Minnesota, you get a region and a community of people that think differently and value differently and act differently because of that.
Anything else on values? Otherwise, we'll move to vision. Who is going to lead us to vision? What was discussed? I don't know, Colin, did you identify anyone at your last team?
Everybody had such good comments that, it'd be hard to pick anybody specifically. So I would welcome anybody to jump in, and perhaps even Jonathan.
I think Monica nailed it last fall. and she reminded me of it today. I'd forgotten about that discussion. This is blinding right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the vision was simply my happy place. And it doesn't get any better than that when it comes to a vision, folks. It's 3 words, everybody gets a smile on their face when they hear it. Sure, my happy place is different for you and for you and for me and for everybody, and that's okay. That's what's the beauty of it. A good vision is something that should always be on the cusp of being obtained, but unobtainable. I mean, not to say that you shouldn't be able to obtain your happy place, but as a society, as a region, it will always be evolving, and that's what makes it a beautiful vision. I can't think of a better vision for the regional park system than simply my happy place.
And the 3 rivers.
Connect, I can't remember what ours is. That says something.
Say it again.
Sure, I'll read it.
You're gonna be deep for that later.
No.
Every person can connect with nature every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
There's the
one.
simplicity.
There is,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was, yeah, I mean, I wrote the original vision statement for 3 Rivers back in 2010. And it had 3 parts, and I had to explain it to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible vision.
Yeah.
It just is too complicated, just way too complicated. And so our incredible staff came up with that much shorter thing. But I think even shorter, my happy place.
Well,
If I got to vote, I'd vote on that.
you know, I think that regardless of whether we're talking about our mission, our values, or our vision, all of it should feel like the invitation to a really great party outdoors.
Yeah.
And you might be a party of one, and you might be a party of a lot of people, but it's gonna be your party. And if it gets too cumbersome in terms of the terms being used, it kind of shuts down that sense of excitement. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bad one.
It gets,
The
no,
best
that's good.
backyard party
Yeah.
in the state or the nation. That's how they used to describe the National Whitewater Center down in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And they market it as such, and everybody goes there and parties their butts off, and then spends $50 for a blanket ticket that gives them zip line rides and river raft rides and stuff like that. And it works tremendously well for them.
Well, and if you think of the little town of Lanesboro down on the river in southeastern Minnesota, people get to experience the driftless part of our state, but the outdoor experiences they can enjoy are just incredible. It's, yeah, and our parks are the same way.
I think part of our struggle is that there's maybe a missing level of specificity between things, where, like as you said, you want something that's very short, very punchy, very party, that, okay, this gets people excited, it lets them know something, and they're interested. And then also, we were talking about what is this leading to as our next steps, and how do we look back? So in the same way that when an implementing agency comes to us with a proposed long-term plan for a park or trail unit, we say, is this consistent with the regional parks policy plan? We should also, as we work on developing a draft of the regional parks policy plan later this year, be able to look at any draft of that and say, is this consistent with our, vision and mission, whatever statements that we're coming up with now? And if those are relatively vague, we might say, well, yeah, kind of. So there's also a layer in between that where we want to say, okay, going beyond party, but not as far as 300 pages of policy. What's the stuff that kind of guides what we need to be thinking about to create that policy, and what we should then compare that policy back to see if we're on the right track or not?
But that's exactly what you're doing right now. I mean, your vision is your highest level thing.
Yeah.
And it's the 30,000 feet. And then below that is your mission. That's your day-to-day operations. This is what we do, and we do it really well. And then below that, here's our values that drive how we go about doing our business. Beyond that, then you get into strategies, and here's how we're going to obtain all of these things. Obtain the vision, you set up some goals, you set up strategies, and then below that you set up tactics. And these are the specific actions that we're going to do, like the equity grant program. It's a tactic.
And some of that, I think, is what's been kind of missing from our stuff, is that we've had, the regional development guide kind of spells out the value and mission stuff, and the parks policies plan spells out tactics. we don't really have the strategy level in our documents much. We kind of do in some places and kind of don't in others. I think we're kind of missing that of, we're gonna call out a bunch of bullet points of things that are way more specific than some of this level, but are not the operational detail quite yet. And that's just something that, it's not really spelled out as one of the statutory named documents in the way we've interpreted those so far, but it's something that I think we've been identifying as missing, and which one it gets shoved into doesn't really matter, but we've kind of been going, and this is why we're trying to, I put a bunch of stuff on some of these that are probably way more detailed than Jonathan would like, and I agree that they maybe don't belong in some of those places, but I also don't know where else to put them.
Yeah. So we need to fill out that middle ground. My hope is that this can be the front end of the policy plan, and that we can figure out a way to step down into those policy strategies and tactics.
Yeah,
So.
and he was just practically word for word reading some stuff off of that one sheet that's on the wall over there that talks about mission statements in other contexts and things like that, and getting into you get a mission statement and then a strategic plan and then a tactical plan and then operational guidance. And that's common in lots of other types of organizations, but it doesn't match to what we call our stuff. So looking at what's on that thing taped to the wall and saying, okay, which ones of these are we doing and which ones are we not doing, and in which document does it happen?
And I learned in my group that whatever it is that you're looking for, Colin will be able to tell you what page it's on.
As long as someone can.
Well, does part of that happen at the implementing agency level? Like, I'm just gonna say the strategies and the tactics happen there, right? And part of this, part of this is to lay the path that aligns with those strategies and tactics. Like, it's like, I don't know if it's our work to do strategies, but to like again, we would be able to talk about, and even the vision, like I just worry that the vision, this idea of if we agree that the vision is what are we working to achieve, is that if that's the definition we're using.
Thank you, Anthony. I mean, that's one reason I'm here. I'm always dancing the line between being a regionalist and I'm representing my agency. And my agency has fierce independence with an elected board that doesn't take kindly to being told what to do by anybody other than their constituents. And so when I see a vision of my happy place, that's something we can run with. When I see something, thou shalt do this, them's fighting words, and this is not a good time for the Met Council to be fighting anybody. This is one of the things that I was trying to promote going through this today is like, what are the strengths of the Met Council? What can they do that we as an agency can't do? And they can look at issues regionally. They do that through research. You have a parks research unit. We do too, we're one agency. The other 9 agencies don't. You can really run with that research. Reinstitute the annual pulse of the region survey. Find out what's important. It'd be great if we had statistics saying the #1 thing people value in the Twin Cities is parks. We don't have that kind of data. What else does the Met Council do that's really cool? Well, what's really cool but also problematic is like the sewer system. They're in charge of the sewer system. They control growth. Well, you know what? The system's busted. I looked at my sewer system slide saying we're gonna run out of capacity in 2030 anyway. And it's like, whoa, dudes, well, we need to fix that. And we need to reimagine our housing needs, our transit needs, and our sewer plan, and not let growth be dictated by where it makes most economic sense to build the next sewer line. We need to look at where do people want to live, and where do we think they're going to be working in a new economy with 22% of the public working remotely 3 to 5 days a week. The Met Council can figure that out. You can be the think tank that brings great ideas to all of us that we can implement, and we can help be part of a solution on. But what doesn't work is kind of more of a regulatory approach.
But Jonathan, nobody's talking about regulatory approach today.
I know, I'm just trying to,
Okay.
I want to inspire you folks, if I can,
But
to move
But it's not
towards.
inspiring, it's really defensive. I'm just saying to you that what I would say to you that really is important, I said this in our group, this is what I know about the regional park system, is that you're absolutely right, and I said this in our group. What you do is you build a park system based on the minimum values of the constituents that live in your community, as well as the highest values of that community. So what happens is Washington County feels very different as a regional system than Dakota County. And that feels very different than Three Rivers. And that feels very different than Anoka. It feels very different, you know what I mean? It feels very different. And so the challenge is, how do we create a more continuous and more shared, a more predictable experience as I move from system to system to system? Because the priorities of every community are gonna be a little bit different.
True.
From a point of entry standpoint though, but that if I've never been in a park, I wanna have a consistent early experience that validates me and creates a positive experience no matter which system I go in, no matter which implementing agency is driving that. So there is an aspect of this that kind of is driven by that. And it's interesting because Jonathan, honestly, I love Three Rivers Park District. I love Three Rivers Park District. There's so many areas where you're killing the game. And there are other areas where you guys are cheap. Like, it's just like cheap. Like, almost like, I was just using the example of, like, we're gonna give anybody who's, this is the truth, y'all, you can sign up for a cross-country ski pass now, and they have removed the obstacle of submitting tax documents. They've literally removed the income requirement because they just don't check it. It's like an honor system. Like, that's a big deal, right? Well, it's a secret, but besides that, but there's no complementary aspect of that for the downhill experiences in the system.
True. Yeah, well, that's because we run that as an enterprise.
That's exactly what I said, because it's about profit.
Well, we're also forced to run it as an enterprise.
You may be forced to, but as you said, y'all don't like construction. Nobody can tell you nothing because you got a powerful board who has a taxing ability, and you can do whatever the hell you want.
True. Yeah.
Right? That's the problem. Is that spirit of independence? You throw that out there all the time. Is why you should get things the hell you want to do them, but we don't use them on our side the way that means we can deliver whatever we want to deliver. And you all are the shining star in a lot of weird ways around this. I mean, so the thing that is missing is you and I joined at the hip, challenging your system and challenging the entire regional system to do better. That's what's missing.
Yeah. Interesting. And so when you want to change behavior, I was always taught you do that through education, through innovation, through incentivization, and then through regulation. And to promote a universal regional vision for the entire regional park system, those are really your four primary avenues that you can create more of a regional system. Because you will have 10 different agencies with 10 different electric boards, all with their own opinions. Education, again, your research group is the number one thing they can do there, though your planning group and across systems has tremendous values too. Incentivization, that's the money part. We all know how that works. Innovation, again, I would talk about the innovation is created through multi-level planning and multidisciplinary planning. And that's really about the only innovation we can do right now. But I mean, we should be talking to the University of Minnesota. They need to restructure. We should be talking to the Itasca group. They know what businesses are facing in the way of worker needs. And we need to understand then how does the housing, how does the transit, and how does the parks all play into those to make it a more successful.
But can we create a regional experience? Can we, high enough up, talk about a regional experience in terms of what happens when you show up? right? Can we talk about a regional experience that, what happens when you go, I really like being here and I need something? Can we talk about, are there things that we can talk about in terms of a regional experience, in terms of continuity of me understanding wayfinding? Is there something we can talk about in terms of regional experience that talks about connection to community organizations, or, you know what I mean, a first call for help, or a minimum in terms of all ability, you know, all abilities access as we think about it, driven by ADA and universal design, those things. That's one thing, but is there something else that we provide relative to our agreed upon shared regional funding and those things that talks about a regional experience, and it's something we decide together? I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's that part of the vision, because again, if this is your happy place, we're talking like everybody's gonna be happy, or just the people that already are happy, or the people who've been there before, or, you know, once you know your way around, like happy shows up differently.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? And so, but again, this idea, is there a way where we can talk about a regional vision that then guides an experience that we can measure and we can achieve and we can offer across, you know, even as though I'm saying about they're different, there's also something really beautiful about Washington County being very different than Three Rivers Park District, being very different, you know, than Dakota County, and you know what I mean? And even within that, based on the region, you know, there's just so many things in our regional park system that are this awesome discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you're good with like, I can go in a park and be safe, and that's a whole nother, I'm telling you, like just, you know, just when you walk into a park you've never been in and you really already feel like it's yours and you belong here, like the opportunity for discovery and realizing self, like that's the stuff, like, you know, for us in youth development, what we're saying is we want people to show up and have the realization that I grew.
So, and some of what you're getting at, and what Jonathan was saying about what can the council do well, I'm gonna come back and disagree with a little bit what you said earlier about the like strategy and tactical planning things. And this is what I was saying over here, we have kind of layers of stuff of what is the mission and purpose of a regional park, what is the mission and purpose of a regional park system, and what is the mission and purpose of the governing bodies of the regional park system and possibly that council. Like when you're going through and talking about layers of mission statement, values, strategic planning, tactical planning, operational policies, things like that, you're gonna go down further on that list for different aspects of that. So when you're talking about the individual parks, we know there's a hard line in the sand of we don't do any of the operational day-to-day stuff with those. We know that that's the implementing agencies.
Right.
So we don't have to go down as far, we're talking about that, they're gonna have those things. But if there's things that the council is responsible for, you're gonna have to have more of that stack fleshed out. So like if we're talking about communications or research, that kind of stuff is going to have layers of detail that an individual park doesn't. So like those are two kind of extremes that are pretty black and white. We know that this could be council responsibility. We know that this has to be implementing agency. There's a lot of gray area in between of where do we break down how far do different ones go. But that's why I say I don't think it's correct to say that strategic planning and tactical planning are all within an implementing agency, because and this is where we've kind of had problems in the past of taking our relationship with implementing agencies and having that sort of result in the regional system is actually just a collection of the implementing agency systems. And it's not just a federation of that. There's supposed to be something that goes beyond them, but is it a regulatory thing of saying you must all do this, 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 and this? Or is it something else or something in between, right? So we're trying to say, how do you get some level of consistency in experience or consistent expectation, even if you have wildly different systems? Those are some other things. So like, we haven't done a great job, I think, of saying, what is the regional system and what is the Met Council's role in that system? We've done, we passed through a bunch of money and we have a couple of rules, but ultimately it's a bunch of implementing agencies doing a bunch of things with a bunch of parks. But like, what is, as far as, you know, Joe Schmo out in the public is gonna care, what makes this a regional system as opposed to just, you know, government doing government things? how is it a system and what does that look like? And that's something that we could probably stand to flesh out. And some of that's going to be doing research about it. Some of it's going to be communicating. Some of it might be wayfinding. Some of it might be getting down into some operational things like having some consistency in signage. Like I went down a rabbit hole the other day on YouTube learning about road signs and how they're different in the US from the rest of the world because the rest of the world all signed on to some treaty and things developed by a particular working group, and we said, no. Well, it's like, yeah, Germany and France have very different national governments, but the road signs look very similar, it turns out, because there's a standard that they're going to. So some of that's in the weird gray area of how far down do you go to have consistent experience and expectation, what fits within what role, and some of those are going to take more levels of planning than others.
Are those our strategies, and let me say from a council perspective, is that a impasse strategy and a tactic? And so, for example, and in terms of Jonathan's model of incentivizing policy and those kind of things, that I think that the equity grant program, for example, was a very specific strategy.
Yeah.
Right? And then our tactics that came after that, right? It guided, I mean, it very specifically guided operational stuff that happened at the implementing agency level. And I think that, like, to me, like that's the, like, really would be interesting for us to go, what are the things we really want them to do? What are the incentives for it? What is the policy that supports it? Like we really get serious about that, because I do think, and again, it's so interesting as a team, because I would then depend on, your savant nature relative to policy to help me know exactly the ways that I can do that within the legal constraints of of Met Council and of the state legislature.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that that's, but the clarity for us really, and we can then create our strategies, our tactics to guide things that happen operationally. And then and what we're asking for, the grant program is really, because we asked them to come back with your strategy, define the tactics, and we are going to fund some of those.
Yeah.
Like that's a really, and so I don't know, is there more of that?
Yeah, there's like maybe more stuff that the council needs to own, because there's been some things where we've said, we would like this to happen. And our current framework for making things happen is to have all 10 implementing agencies do it. And they've come back and said, well, we don't really want to be doing that. But sometimes they've said, we kind of wish it was being done. Could you do it? And we've said, we don't have a structure for doing anything like that. Right. So some of it's, if we want it to get done, rather than trying to mandate 10 separate agencies to try to do it somehow separately together, maybe it's our thing to do. And figure out what, there's a bucket here. It's not just us doing a thin thing and saying, all of you do this. So whenever we wanted to kind of mandate down, they said, that's not really our thing. Maybe we just need to have some space to own our own goals and how that happens.
Well, one last thing, let me ask, and Jonathan, is this something related to our relationship to implementing agencies? Like what you're describing, because I think there's a lot of knowledge there as well. Like, you know what I mean? Is there something in that interface where that those elements that we are gonna own is defined jointly or something? I'm playing both sides of the aisle for us in this, but you know what I'm saying? I think there's an aspect of the implementing agency autonomy and the implementing agency's lived experience in terms of learning that has value, and they all have different pots of money, lots of different ways of getting money. Is there some way that in terms of our relationship, and actually it feels dramatically improved over the last 4 years too, you know what I mean? I think just that makes life better for us, and maybe it isn't, maybe it's just an illusion. But you know what I mean? What do we do in terms of just utilizing that ongoing relationship to define those things, and so it is in almost where we get more power as as a regional authority.
Yeah. Well, and some of that's also just communication amongst ourselves, because I know when we're talking about drafting policies and things, there's a lot of stuff that happens where staff goes and has work groups with all the implementing agencies, and then they come to us with something saying, we developed blah 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 in conjunction with the IAs, but we don't as commissioners, have a whole lot of visibility into what that process works. Like, I hear about some of it from Emmett, but staff is doing a lot of work behind the scenes with the implementing agencies, but we're maybe a little detached from what that looks like. I don't know if we necessarily need to be directly involved in them, but maybe we need to do a better job of educating ourselves about how does staff do that behind the scenes work in their, the 9 to 5 day jobs of, because the implementing agencies also, those are day jobs for implementing agency staff. Jonathan's here after hours, fundamentally, but for the rest of us, we have day jobs that are outside of parks.
You're volunteering.
So this nitty-gritty work that's happening is primarily staff to staff that we don't understand in the same way that we do our own commission and council work.
Well, and practically speaking, that's the same way for Met Council members.
Yeah.
There are 16 of us who, this is a part-time, sometimes I really wonder how part-time, but part-time position. And the staff are working with cities and counties and townships and then bring us like comp plans to approve, but the nitty-gritty's been done at the local level with our staff involved.
Yeah.
And we're kind of, we're at the 30,000 level.
So some of this might be also just procedurally when we as commissioners would like something brought up in those working group things, we might need to do a better job of proactively notifying staff about that, and then staff reporting back to us in probably a report section or something of, hey, we had a meeting with them and here was the outcome. Sometimes that comes up in the context of a business item, but sometimes you're talking about things that haven't necessarily resulted in a business item. And we sometimes hear about it and sometimes we don't even know to ask.
Well, and one of the other things we might want to do, Tony, is think about opportunities to invite the implementing agency staff in for conversations like this.
Yeah. But of course, I also need to recognize that we meet after their paid hours end.
Right.
So some of them will send people and some
they'll come.
well,
Huh? Yeah.
This is part of the gig.
Yeah, I mean,
You meet when the public can meet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And,
You guys end up with all sorts of evenings and weekends.
yeah.
they do, but I also work for the government and I know that even if it is my job, I would like to go home at the end of the day. So I don't necessarily want to be the one asking you to do too much more.
Which would suggest we should wrap soon,
Yeah.
because it's gone late.
So, Emmett, if I
Yep.
may, reduce this, because all this is not really the vision statement. We went out of track a little,
Yes, we
why around it. So instead of my happy place, it has to be something simple, like deliver, a outstanding, wholesome, excellent, whatever adjective that you find perfect. So deliver an outstanding regional experience to all. To me, this is the job for the Metro, for our commission, and for the agency. We have to deliver the best experience for everybody when they are out there, which is, resume to find my happy place if you don't want. Or ask the IA to rephrase it for you. It will work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can
Yes, they
enumerate it.
yeah, it's amazing. They're pretty good at resume stuff.
I think for me, what I've heard out of this tonight is that we need to rethink a little bit what we're doing here, in that the role of this strategic plan may need to refocus itself more on what the Met Council can do and what it should do, and less on sort of giving direction into the regional implementing agencies on what they should do. We have policies in terms of how we're going to evaluate their master plans and dispense the money. But there are roles here for the Met Council on a much bigger, higher level about setting an expectation, setting a vision, communicating that vision, and doing some research which will help the implementing agencies better understand what they need to do. So I'm just thinking that we need to do a better job of figuring out what we're supposed to be doing rather than kind of what they're supposed to be
And I would add to that, I've already said it, I'll say it again, building relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, we get to see Jonathan almost every month. I could run into somebody from one of the implementing agencies at the grocery store and think, gosh, that person looks familiar. Where did I meet him? You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not a criticism at all. It's just a reality. But if we can find opportunities to build those relationships, I think it'll really help.
Yeah.
Like for instance, you guys have a State of the Parks coming up, right?
Yeah, we do, on, April 19th.
Yeah.
Did we invite you?
I'm gonna be there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Did we invite all of you, I hope?
Did you invite Mike?
I don't know, I haven't been involved in the invitation part.
And I don't know why I got invited, but I got invited.
No.
It's in the morning.
It is, in Highland Chalet
Yeah.
in Wilmington.
Yeah.
It will be interesting, it's our new board chair will be speaking on some of the topics that we touched on today, actually. You know, the challenges facing the region, what is our role as the regional park system in helping address those challenges.
Well, and you know, the one other thing is that we can also be an advocate at the state and federal level. And that doesn't really fit into the mission values, but it's a strategy. You know, it's a major to-do. But
Yeah, and that's something that we've done a little bit of, but there's probably been some opportunities for more of it that we haven't done.
You have tremendous power, and I sometimes don't know if you realize it, as the Metropolitan Planning Organization in Minnesota. If you go and tell Amy Klobuchar, we need you to support, well, in my case, this is a pitch for my RAISE grant that we put in to build $30 million for the active transportation network, because we're not calling it regional trails. It's the active transportation network. We have an ask-in for $25 million federal grant. We'll match the rest of it. We desperately need ongoing advocacy to the senators for that. And as the MPO, that carries a lot of power that gets people's ears. In fact, I'll be reaching out to you more about that.
There's also an opportunity, I think, in terms of advocacy for the concept of regional parks and trails generally, in that there is now a Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails organization and system that did not exist when the Met Councils was created. It is now several years old, and there is coordination between us and them and DNR in the context of legacy, the Legacy Advisory Committee, but there isn't in other ways. And we may want to look at that a little more when we're talking about, like, with the state legislature, when they're talking about bonding programs and operations and maintenance funding for regional systems. We should probably be going with joint asks with the greater Minnesota ones of saying, hey, we want operations and maintenance for all regional parks and trails. This is not the Metro asking only for their thing. We recognize that this other thing exists, and that's an opportunity for broader support. We're like, yeah, it applies outstate too in exactly the same way. It's just slightly beyond our silo. And that, I don't know that we've had good context for.
We do that, actually. It's
And
a lot of what my job is.
There's some that happens within part of staff, but like within the public aspect of us and Sue, we don't really do that.
we specifically don't do that.
Yeah.
Certainly, I would think IMPAS members could, but.
Yeah.
We coordinate our asks. We work a lot with DNR before we even putting things together for our park package and coordinating.
And then the other question is, and when we're just like communicating to the general public about what we're trying to do, are we letting them know that we're coordinating those sorts of things? We're not trying to actually define anything today, but we could probably ramble forever if we wanted to. Have we answered the questions that staff needed answered for today?
We initiated the conversation, which is really what we were trying to accomplish. So we have done it. We will be back to continue. This is a long process, but in a good way. And we want to really jump things forward as we move this along. And we do, we are going for greater integration. We are going for to create a step down from this big regional development guide into the regional parks and trails system. And we have some work to do. So thank you, Chair and Commissioners and Council Member. We are making progress. So.
Okay. I think I'll wrap that up for today, kind of move on, because yes, it is getting late and we're losing people. But we are coming back to this information item in some other forms later, so it's not done.
I think we should come up with a regional park coloring book.
Oh, good grief.
Oh, that is not beyond.
That's all.
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. Go to the park and you find the park and then color.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Scavenger.
to move on to reports to wrap us up, my main thing would be to call out that we do still have 2 vacancies to fill for anybody that may be watching. If you live in those districts or know of anybody that you can go prod who might be good, that would be great. So they are District E, which is kind of the western half of suburban Ramsey County, so kind of the triangle of Falcon Heights to North Oaks and New Brighton, and then most of Anoka County with the exception of its easternmost part. So from Circle Pines on up to East Bethel, and then all the way over to St. Francis and down to Ramsey. So most of Anoka County, just not the Columbus, Lino Lakes Strip, and Ramsey County outside of St. Paul and west of Van Ness Heights. And then in District H, that's most of Dakota County, everything from Egan and Inver Grove Heights on south, and Scott County, Spring Lake, Elko New Market, Credit River area. If you know anybody, please have them contact us because we don't want to get too much further down this line of the Regional Parks Policy Plan development short members because we want those perspectives from those areas.
Well, and the other point about that, I have found this really beneficial as somebody who's only been a part of these conversations for a year. I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah. So we want to
Especially
get
that
them
Collins is source
in
of all
early.
page numbers.
Yeah. So it'll be a lot easier for new commissioners if we can get them in now than if we're already 2/3 of the way through.
We're working on it.
So that's my big ask. Any other commissioner reports?
I do want to share something. It came out on the Sun Post in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, and I thought it was very interesting. So it's an article about the Metro Council and the part of the, our council, open space, say that the Minneapolis chains of lakes, Square Lakes, and Lebanon Hills, these 3 places receive more annual visit than Glacier, Yellowstone, and the Grand Canyon National Parks combined, which I thought that was crazy because I didn't know this and I thought it was great. Yeah.
That's cool.
So there we go. That's what we have to communicate. Marketing and more marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner reports? Liaison? Staff?
Just that the legislative session is fast moving, a lot going on, tremendous opportunity. So we're working through a biennial budgeting year with legacy in play. There's bonding bills, operation and maintenance. There's one for tree planting and emerald ash borer tree removal. So there's just a lot in play. So stay tuned. We're on a legislative break right now, but I think we'll be back next week on Tuesday to continue the conversation.
There's a threat to have everything done by May 7th.
Sure.
Yes. Well, at least by the end of session, which is maybe a little bit later in May, but.
Yeah, it's usually around the 15th, give or take.
So it's going well though.
Okay.
And it's a coordinated effort.
Sounds good. With that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Thanks for sticking around, everybody.